no fire to be seen, only clouds of smoke, and Mr. Prothero standing in the middle of them, waving his slippers as though he were conducting. Do something, he said, and we threw all our snowballs into the smoke. I think we missed Mr. Prothero, and we ran out of the house to the telephone box. Let's call the police as well, Jim said. On the ambulance. And Ernie Jenkins, he likes fires. But we only called the fire brigade, and soon the fire engine came, and 3 tall men in helmets brought a hose into the house. And Mr. Prothero got out just in time before they turned it on. Nobody could have had a noisier Christmas Eve. And when the fireman turned off the hose and was standing in a wet, smoky room, Jim's aunt, Miss Prothero, came downstairs and peered in at them. Jim and I waited very quietly to hear what she would say to them. She said the right thing always. She looked at the 3 tall firemen in their shining helmets, standing among the smoke and cinders and dissolving snowballs, and she said, "Would you like anything to read?" Oh, years and years ago when I was a boy, when there were wolves in Wales and birds the colour of red flannel petticoats whisked past the harp-shaped hills, when we sang and wallowed all night and day in caves that smelt like Sunday afternoons in damp front farmhouse parlours. And we chased, with the jawbones of deacons, the English and the bears before the motor car, before the wheel, before the Duchess-faced horse, when we rode the daft and happy hills bareback. It snowed, and it snowed. It snowed last year too. I made a snowman and my brother knocked it down, and I knocked my brother down, and then we had tea. Oh, but that was not the same snow, I say. Our snow was not only shaken from whitewash buckets down the sky, it came shawling out of the ground and swam and drifted out of the arms and hands and bodies of the trees. Snow grew overnight on the roofs of the houses like a pure and grandfather moss. Minutely I weighed the walls and settled on the postman, opening the gate like a dumb, numb thunderstorm of white, torn Christmas cards. Oh, with a present man there too, with sprinkling eyes and wind-cherried noses on spread frozen feet. They crunched up to the doors and mittened on them manfully. But all the children could hear was ringing of bells. Oh, you mean that the postman went rat-a-tat-tat and the doors rang? Oh, no. I mean that the bells that the children could hear were inside them. Oh, I only hear thunder sometimes, never bells. Oh, there were church bells too. Inside them? No, 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 no. In the black snow-white belfries, tugged by bishops and storks. And they rang their tidings over the bandaged town, over the frozen foam of the powder and ice cream hills, over the crackling sea. It seemed that all the churches boomed for joy under my window, and the weathercocks crew for Christmas on our fence. Oh, get back to the postmen. Oh, they were just ordinary postmen, fond of walking and dogs and Christmas and the snow. They knocked on the doors with blue knuckles. Ours has got a black knocker. Oh, and then they stood on the white welcome mats in the little drifted porches and huffed and puffed, making ghosts with their breath, and jogged from foot to foot like small boys wanting to go out. And then the presents. Oh, yes. And then the presents after the Christmas box. And the old cold postman with a rose on his button nose tingled down the tea tray's slithered run of the chilly glinting hill. He went in his icebound boots like a man on a fishmonger's slabs. He wagged his bag like a frozen camel's hump, dizzily turned the corner on one foot, and by God, he was gone. Get back to the presents. Oh, there were the useful presents, engulfing mufflers of the old coach days and mittens made for giant sloths zebra scarves of a substance like silky gum that would be tug-of-war down to the galoshes, blinding tam-o'-shanters like a patchwork tea cozies, and bunny-suited busbies and balaclavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes, from ants, who always wore wool next to the skin. They were mustached and rasping best, but the men who wonder why the ants had any skin left at all. And once I had a little crocheted nose bag from an ant, now alas no longer whinnying with us, and pictureless books in which small boys, though warned with quotations not to, would skate on Farmer Jail's pond, and did, and drowned. And books that told me everything about the wasp, except why. Go on to the useless presents. Bags of moist and many-coloured jelly babies, and a folded flag, and a false nose, and a tram conductor's cap, and a machine that punched tickets and rang a bell. Never a catapult. Once by mistake that no one could explain, a little hatchet, and a celluloid duck that made, when you pressed it, a most unduck-like sound, a mewing moo that an ambitious cat might wake who wished to be a cow, and a painting book in which I could make the grass, the trees, the sea, and animals any colour I please. And still the dazzling blue sheep are grazing in the red field under the rainbow-billed and pea-green birds. There's hard-boiled eggs, toffee, fudge, and all sorts, crunches, cracknel, humbugs, glaciers, marzipan, and butter Welsh for the Welsh, and troops of bright tin soldiers who, if they could not fight, could always run, and snakes and families and happy ladders, and easy hobby games for little engineers, complete with instructions. Easy for Leonardo, and a whistle to make the dogs bark, to wake up the old man next door. They make him beat on the wall with his stick to shake our picture off the wall. And a packet of cigarettes. You put one in your mouth, and you stood at the corner of the street, and you waited for hours in vain for an old lady to scold you for smoking a cigarette, and then with a smirk, you ate it. Oh, and then it was breakfast under the balloons. Were there uncles in your house? Oh, there were always uncles at Christmas. The same uncles. And on Christmas mornings, with dog-disturbing whistle and sugar fags, I would scour the swelled town for the news of the little world, and find always a dead bird by the post office, or the white deserted swings. Perhaps a robin, but all but one of his fires out. Men and women wading, scooping back from chapel with tap-room noses and wind-bust cheeks, all albinos, huddled with their stiff black jarring feathers against the irreligious snow. Mistletoe hung from the gas brackets in all the front parlours. There was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons, and cats in their furabouts watched the fires. And a high-heaped fire spat, all ready for the chestnuts and the mullein pokers. Some few large men sat in the front parlours without their collars, uncles almost certainly trying the new cigars, holding them out judiciously at arm's length, returning them to their mouths, coughing, and then holding them out again as though waiting for them to explode. And some few small ants, not wanted in the kitchen or anywhere else for that matter. They sat on the very edges of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to break like faded cups and saucers. Not many those mornings trod the piling streets. An old man always, fawn-bowled, yellow-gloved, and at this time of year with spats of snow, would take his constitutional to the white bowling green and back, as he would take it wet or fire on Christmas Day or Doomsday. Sometimes two hale young men, with big pipes blazing, no overcoats, and wind-blown scarfs, would trudge unspeaking, down to the forlorn sea to work up an appetite, to blow away the fumes. Who knows? To walk into the waves and then nothing was left but the two curling smoke clouds of their extinguishable briars. Then there would be a slap dashing home, the gravy smell of the dinners of others, the bird smell, the brandy, and the pudding and mince, coiling up to my nostrils. And out of a snow-clogged side lane would come a boy, the spit of myself, with a pink-tipped cigarette and the violet past of a black eye, cocky as a bullfinch, leering all to himself. I hated him on sight and sound, and we would be about to put my dog whistle to my lips and blow him off the face of Christmas, when suddenly he, with a violent wink, put his whistle to his lips and blew so stridently, so high, so exquisitely loud, that goblin faces, their cheeks bulging with goose, would press against their tinselled windows the whole length of the white echoing street. Oh, for dinner we had turkey and blazing pudding. And after dinner, the uncles sat in front of the fire, loosened all buttons, and put their large, moist hands over their watch chains, groaned a little, and slept. Mothers, aunts, and sisters scuttled to and fro, bearing tureens. Aunt Bessie, who had already been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at the sideboard and had some elderberry wine. The dog was sick. Auntie Dozy had to have 3 aspirins, but Auntie Hannah, who liked port, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard, singing like a big bosom thrush. I would blow up balloons to see how big they would blow up to. And then when they burst, which they all did, the uncles jumped and rumbled. In the rich and heavy afternoon, the uncles breathing like dolphins and the snow descending, I would sit among festoons and Chinese lanterns and nibble dates and try to make a model man-of-war, following the instructions for the engineers, and produce what might be mistaken for a sea-going tram car. Or I would go out, my bright new boots squeaking into the white world, onto the seaward hill, to call on Jim and Dan and Jack, and to pad through all the still streets, leaving huge, deep footprints on the hidden pavements. I bet people would think they'd been hippos. What would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street? I'd go like this, bang. I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down the hill, and then I'd tickle him under the ear and he'd wag his tail. What would you do if you saw 2 hippos? Iron flanked and bellowing he-hippos clanked and battered through the scudding snow towards us as we passed Mr. Daniel's house. Let's push Mr. Daniel a snowball through his letterbox. Let's write things in the snow. Let's write, Mr. Daniel looks like a spaniel, all over his lawn. Or we walked on the white shore. Can the fishes see it snowing? The silent, one-clouded heavens drifted on to the sea. And now we were snow-blind travellers, lost on the North Hills, and vast dewlap dogs with flasks around their necks ambled and shambled up to us, baying, Excelsior! We returned home through the poor streets, where only a few children fumbled with bare red fingers in the wheel-rutted snow, and catcalled after us. Their voices faded away as we trudged uphill into the cries of the dock birds and the hooting of ships out in the whirling bay. And then, at tea, the recovered uncles would be jolly, and the ice cake loomed in the center of the table like a marble grave. Auntie Hannah laced her tea with rum, because it was only once a year. Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the fire as the gaslight bubbled like a diver. Ghosts wooed like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder, and animals lurked in the cubbyhole under the stairs where the gas meter ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once when there wasn't the shaving of a moon to light the flying streets. At the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house. And we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each one of us afraid, each one holding a stone in hand just in case. And all of us too brave to say a word. The wind through the trees made noises as of old and unpleasant, and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black hulk of the house. What shall we give them, Hark the Herald? No, Jack said. Good King Wenceslas, I'll count 3. 1, 2, 3, and we began to sing, our voices high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness, round the house that was occupied by nobody that we knew. We stood close together near the door. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. And then a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who's not spoken for a long time, joined us singing, a small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door, a small voice through the keyhole. And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. Oh, the front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water bulk gulping gas. Everything was good again and shone over the town. Perhaps it was a ghost, Jim said. Perhaps it was trolls, Dan said, who was always reading. Let's go and see if there's any jelly left, Jack said. And we did that. Always on Christmas night there was music. An uncle played the fiddle, and a cousin sang Cherry Ripe, and another uncle sang Drake's Drum. It was very warm in the little house. Auntie Hannah, who had got on to the parsnip wine, sang a song about bleeding hearts and death, and another one in which she says her heart was like a bird's nest. And then everybody laughed again. And then I went to bed, looking through my bedroom window out into the moonlight and the unending smoke-colored snow. I could see the lights in the windows of all the other houses on our hill, and I could hear the music rising from them up the long, steadily falling night. I turned the gas light down. I got into bed. I said some words to the close and holy darkness, and then I slept and dreamt all again of those Christmases long, long ago. Thank you.
I think John is still clicking things. Smile, John.
Are you muted?
So if anyone would like to say hi, or I can allow you to talk if you want to put something in the chat, I can read some of these for John. So you have some bravos in here, John. I don't know, can you see in the chat? Steve is saying hello. Steve Van Hook said hello. Nancy Cohen has sent a well done, bravo. Jim Colbert has sent a nicely done. Nancy added, felt like I was there. Loved the snowballs putting out the fire. This is one of my favorite things that we do here. Jim and Sheila are saying hi and thank you. Deb has added, I loved it. And Steve, I agree with you. It's not December without JVJ reading A Child's Christmas in Wales.
Yes.
Are you able to see these, John? I'm not sure if he's reading them or not. Terry,
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Can you see in the chat?
Can I what?
Can you see inside the chat the notes that you're getting?